We are losing our sense that we know who we are and what we know is important, right? Like we have sovereignty over that. And our biggest gift as humans is our sense of self. And only us, each of us know what we can enjoy, what brings us purpose, all that. These things, these tools can help, but we have actually that inner wisdom, and we are being taught that we need external things to help us get there. And this is the main issue.
From early digital media pioneer to mental health advocate for creators, meet Shira Lazar. Shira revolutionized web-first news in 2011 with What's Trending. Predating the creator economy as we know it today, she recognized the power of digital culture before most, becoming a go-to voice for emerging online communities in viral moments when traditional media wasn't paying attention. Through advocacy work, her weekly newsletter, The Alpha, and speaking engagements on stages like South by Southwest, VeeCon, and CES, Shira continues to shape how we think about technology's impact on creators and society. As an Emmy-nominated digital culture trailblazer, one of Fast Company's most influential women in technology, and on Variety's Women of Impact list, Shira has spent over 2 decades at the intersection of technology, media, and human connection. Her journey from broadcaster to digital innovator led her to an even more crucial mission: supporting creator well-being through co-founding Peace Inside Live, which is a wellness agency and collective. This work led to launching the Creators for Mental Health initiative, which is focused on bringing mental health tools to the creator economy through events and community programming. I first saw Shira on stage at MidwestCon last year, and then had the opportunity to meet her in Austin this past March. I'm not only a big fan of her work, but also appreciate all she does as an advocate for centering well-being, and also being able to have nuanced and needed conversations about the digital landscape. One question we dive into: are AI creators making money, and do they have the tools to set themselves up for success in their careers? Today, you'll hear Shira's unique perspective on the evolution of the creator economy from the early days of YouTube stars to the current AI revolution. She shares invaluable insights on creator sustainability, mental health, and building a more mindful digital future. As a trigger warning, this episode contains discussions of suicide and mental health that some listeners may find distressing. If you're having thoughts of suicide, call or text 988 to reach the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, or visit speakingofsuicide.com for more support and resources. In today's episode, join us to get a pulse on the creator economy and what's needed so we all thrive, centering well-being to unlock our best content we can imagine. Enjoy.
Have you ever thought, what if this is all just a dream?
Welcome to Creativity Squared. Discover how creatives are collaborating with artificial intelligence in your inbox, on YouTube, and on your preferred podcast platform. Hi, I'm Helen Todd, your host, and I'm so excited to have you join the weekly conversations I'm having with amazing pioneers in the space. The intention of these conversations is to ignite our collective imagination at the intersection of AI and creativity to envision a world where artists thrive. Well, Shira, welcome to Creativity Squared.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, well, it's been a long time coming. Yeah. We met way back in March. So I feel like it was yesterday and forever ago all at the same time, because so much has happened. But for those who are meeting you for the first time, can you share who you are, what you do, and a bit of your origin story?
Yeah, I'm Shira. I'm the CEO and founder of What's Trending. We are a digital media brand and publisher covering the social media water cooler, What's Trending. Pretty self-explanatory. So you can find us everywhere, whatstrending.com and at What's Trending on social media. And I also have a wellness organization called Peace Inside Live, where we build customized wellness programs for companies, teams, and communities. And more recently launched an initiative that is relevant for, I think, our conversation today, called Creators for Mental Health. And also, if you follow me on my personal brand, I do talk a lot about these topics, from the creator economy, emerging tech, including AI, and the future of mental wellness, as well as an advocate for that work. And so that's where I'm at now. And my origin story, I guess, I came to LA over 20 years ago and wanted to be a broadcaster, and dabbled in traditional media and went after all the big jobs like MTV and E! Entertainment, and would get so close but no cigar. And so I found myself discovering these emerging tech communities at the time in Los Angeles, and meeting these founders and people that were launching these .coms and playing around with video and apps. And it was, in a way, a right place, right time, but also I'd always been someone who was like an early adopter in that way. I grew up with my dad, shout out to him, who, I was the first one to have a computer or to play around with this type of stuff. So I think that it was a mixture between, opportunity meets preparation, however that saying goes. And that I also grew up with entrepreneurs. So I understood that. And for me, I had the skills of the traditional broadcast world, but the passion and enthusiasm that the tech and digital startup world needed. So it was a beautiful, I would say, like, intersection that made it possible, I think, for me to dive in. And I did that in LA, and I became just a go-to person for, as the digital scene was growing. Like, if you needed video, hosted video interviews, I was your person. And then that led me to creating my own little job at CBS News, where I started covering what would become a new beat, which is really digital culture, and covering the viral videos and why things are going viral and trending. And then that's where What's Trending, my company, emerged from. And we started off with CBS News. And again, I'd been working at a lot of other places. This just was like one of the paths. But I was also before that at NBC, and working for Yahoo and Verizon. I mean, many companies under the sun. But this is where kind of What's Trending came out of. And we started out with a partnership with CBS News, and then we went off on our own and really started building in September 2011 onwards as more of our own company, independent company. And that's led me to a crazy journey in entrepreneurship. and in between, I've been an afternoon drive radio host and so many other things, but that's like one of the paths that I think that we'll be focusing on today.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and two other just quick things to, I guess, double click on that. We both went to Emerson College. Yes. So shout out to Emerson, especially with the traditional like broadcasting and communications, lots of love to Emerson. And one guest that you've had, which I'm working on manifesting to get him on my show, is Snoop Dogg.
Snoop, that was very early on. That's so funny. What's Trending at the time was like one of the first internet culture shows. So whenever a celebrity had something to promote that happened to be on the internet, social media app, we were the place to be because no one else was covering it. Like Entertainment Tonight wouldn't cover it. They didn't get it. Now, I mean, that's different. But so I ended up building those relationships with all the celebrities that had digital teams and were just smart, saw what was coming. And so, Snoop was part of that way back. And I even, during YouTube upfronts one year, I introduced him and his performance, but I kind of got close with his team over those years. So that's definitely a throwback.
Nice. Oh, and one thing too that I appreciate Well, I guess there's just some parallels between us a little bit. Like when I mess up analogies left and right too. So I appreciate that you do that. But I started my social media agency in 2010, and we were really early on the social media stage. So we kind of were early on that social media, revolution and moment. And I went the agency route, and you went the more content creator route. And fast forward, the chat GPT moment felt like the early days of social media all over again, about this big disruptive technology that's going to impact everything. Then I jumped into the more content creator side. Which brings us to today's conversation. One reason why I'm super excited to bring you on the show is, what I mentioned when we spoke earlier, that part of the show is envisioning, a future where artists and creatives creators not only exist or coexist with AI, but thrive. And you've been really knee deep in the creator economy as a creator, and also interviewing and going to conferences and covering. So I'm excited to dive into just what that means, where it's been, where it's at, and where it's going. So with that, since you have been early on, can you kind of give us a look back of, the creator economy that has kind of emerged? I guess I would put it with the internet, right? And like maybe like Walmart moms or like blog mommers.
Yeah, I was about to say like
mom bloggers might have been like the early ones.
Yeah, we're going to go that back. I mean, you could say community message boards are really the first, right? And like the people that kind of emerged from that, and that then, bloggers and blog moms. And then of course, moving into, MySpace. And then I would say, Twitter before anything. And then it was really Instagram and Facebook, because Facebook, of course, was, started out as more of like a college community, and then was more where we connected with each other versus creating content on the platform. And so for me, the first platform really I remember starting out as like to connect with people that I was meeting and knew and getting followers was Twitter. MySpace I was on, I just didn't look at it as that at the time. I was probably a bit too young at the time, but I saw, obviously you're following musicians, you're following personalities. It was like the beginning of that, like building up a celebrity on social in that way. And then of course, you have Instagram, and then Vine, and then Vine's gone. And then of course, YouTube, YouTube, I think, and Twitter kind of were side by side, and in different ways. I felt the tech community was more on Twitter and the news community. And then YouTube was just its own beast, and really was emerging a bit underground, like behind the scenes from a lot of, I would say, the traditional media folks or marketing or tech folks, because a lot of it was kids that were just, I hate to say the analogy, in their parents' basement, but, in the middle of nowhere, or like Midwest, like not in LA or New York. They weren't in these cities, and they were just kids that were creating content and building their own communities. And then really seeing in 2008 that emerge IRL, going to the first VidCon and being like, whoa, wait a second. And again, even then, I thought at the time I was late, which is hilarious. I thought, oh my God, these people all know each other. I feel like I'm this outsider coming in. At the time, I was doing some stuff for CBS News already, covering viral videos and stars. Like, it wasn't yet creator culture, really. It was just like, oh, you're someone that creates videos on YouTube, or you have viral moments. But then that was a real inflection point, because seeing their fans lining up IRL, like it felt like the Beatles a bit, screaming and lining up to take pictures. I was like, wait, what is going on? And for me, that was the moment. Definitely things changed. And I actually, from there, started this YouTube series called Partners Project, which was supposed to be the Inside the Actor Studio for YouTube stars. And that was as What's Trending was emerging. And then from there, it felt like it made sense to kind of bring these people together who had, the people you're following online, to, in the context of a talk show, to talk about the things they care about, right? And so for me, I guess that's a bit of the history of online communities in a way. I'm probably missing something in creator culture. And I guess, I think Vine was one of, like, YouTube was monetizing. They had the partner program, and obviously then brands were interested. But I feel like Vine is where I really started seeing those, like, brand integrations, because they didn't really have the partner program. They didn't have a rev share model. So that's where I feel like you really start seeing people partner with brands to make money in campaigns in that way. Of course, What's Trending was doing it a while back. Like, we were doing campaigns. I mean, we started off because we had a deal with AT&T. I'm like, am I forgetting that? We had a deal with AT&T, and yeah, I'm like, is it T-Mobile or AT&T? It was AT&T, and like, it was an integration into the content, right? And then it was also a media buy across CBS News at the time. And so we were doing integrations on YouTube, definitely. But that was also something new. And like, really, the reason why they said yes at the time is because they could kind of back up into programmatic and like traditional media they were buying that they understood. Right? Like, they didn't really understand like the value of integrating into a digital series at the time that was starting out. And so we basically sold them on the numbers from more of an older media model. That said, they said yes, and there we go. But that's where I see, like, obviously the monetization start, the success stories from the YouTube partner program. And then, of course, bringing, brands in, doing branded content in short form, that started with Vine, and then moving, then those stars moving to YouTube and Instagram. So, and then where are we today? I mean, there's obviously Twitch is somewhere in there as well. and there's probably some other platforms that like came and went that I'm totally missing out on, but you get the gist. And I think that now we're kind of in this place that is interesting, because it's both challenging and yet there's a lot of opportunities. I think that, again, as someone who's a creator and also a business owner of a company that makes money on digital, you can have really good months, really good quarters, really bad months, really bad quarters. Oh yeah, and then the Snap. I totally forgot about Snap. Snap's in there too. And yeah, and that's, I think, the hardest part, but it's partially also the economy. Like, every business is having this, and then the creator economy is reflective of that. But what it would be nice to have a bit more sustainability. And I think that YouTube did have that way back. And then when they changed their partner program a bit, and obviously as more creators came on board, it just became less and less and less, and throwing some people out of premium. And as they say, the adpocalypse and all that really hit creators hard and really forced creators to think outside the box and focus on other monetization streams, like, and other platforms. Oh yeah, TikTok. Oh my God, I'm like forgetting things. Musical.ly came up. We were on Musical.ly. Musical.ly became TikTok. We're now seeing a smorgasbord of platforms. But again, there's the big four. There's now that I've gotten there, because my brain was like, the big places people are making money, either all or one or the other, is YouTube, Snap, Instagram, TikTok. Twitter, I would say, is a side thing. It's a very niche community making money on Twitter. And then you have the other five now, which is probably like more ownership monetization, O&O. So if you have a .com newsletter, text, even some people are into text with the community, Patreon, subscription. So there you go. That is the ecosystem we have. I think that's it. And I would say, even off this, then you have other models that creators can make money from: consulting, advising, products, book deal, events, speaking, all that.
And I could probably do a quick Google search, but for those, like, we all kind of know that there's a creator economy, but I think one thing that I don't know off the top of my head is, like, you have people like Mr. Beast that's making bank and kind of, set his own category and all of this. But then you have so many creators that, maybe it's user-generated content with maybe a little trickle of money coming down here and there. But what's the sense of, like, is it mostly, for the most part, side hustles, or is it enough where people, like enough creators, are making a living off of this new creator economy that we're in? That's the sense that I kind of don't have a good sense of, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and there's been some reports about this, but again, how honest are these reports? So I'm just looking this up right now because I've seen it, but I didn't have it on me. So in the US, this is hey, take this for what it is. I just Googled this. In the US, there are 27 million paid creators, which is 14% of the population between the ages of 16 and 54. 10% of influencers can earn 100,000 or more per year. 26% make 1,000 or less. There you go. That was that answer. So I would say for a lot of people, it is a side hustle. I think very few people are like, and what is really like, I think what's like full time, we're each a small business. So we're a new class of small business. Small businesses even have different revenue streams. And even another business, if you had one part of your business that was making a bulk of the money, if you were smart, you would say, okay, that's great. But hey, if this dries up, I'm going to be screwed. So I'm going to like look at other ways to make money and like take advantage of the real estate I have here and what I built in the credibility. So I look at the creator business as a similar thing. And so when you own, like, I hate the idea of like full time. It's like when you're a business owner, you're full time doesn't mean you're always making money. Because there's a lot that goes into that.
I know.
So I just feel like that.
Yes.
It's a reality we need to talk about because, like, again, there's this glamour and like these misconceptions about being a creator, including for the younger generation who everyone wants to be an influencer. And then the reality is like, it is a lot of work. It's not sustainable. And that might not work for everyone. Similar, being a business owner is up and down. How very few % of people actually succeed. So it's like, these are very similar stories. So if we look at it more like that, we could, one, understand the realities of it, but also not give it this horrible rap because like, this is the reality of business, including in a precarious field that is new and an industry that is just like being created and that is unstable. So, you have to know what you're signing up for.
Well, I guess one thing that, I spend a lot of time thinking about, and I know you do too, is we're both kind of in this sandbox, so to speak, or playground. And I'm making a bet to really have this podcast and my book, future book, and speaking and stuff really supplant all, my revenue and income from my social media agency is the plan. So I'm betting kind of on this model moving forward, and it seems like. I mentioned to you my presentation, Farewell Information Age, Welcome to the Imagination Age. And if you see, like in the Industrial Revolution, it was like the steel and manufacturing, and then Information Age, the big five, what is it? Amazon, Facebook, Google, and one other that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, are the big players. But like, what are the companies doing really well right now? Adobe, Reddit is taking over, like all user generated content. It seems like the creator economy is becoming more of a force. And then we have like potentially, NFTs and smart contracts and new revenue models that it's only going to become more stable. At least that's what I'm hoping. Is that kind of, do you see that too? Or I guess, where do you see where it's going?
I guess there's different, what you just said, parts of the creator economy. Of course, it's built on the backs of creators and users, clearly. But then, there's the tech, the creative companies that build around it, like Adobe, like Canva. And then there's the data companies that build around it. Then there's the, brands that build around it. Those are the influencer marketing agencies that build around it. And then there's also like products and companies. So like, again, it's a whole ecosystem. And I do think that at different parts in different times, like that ecosystem is in flux. It's like, so you might see movement to one area and then the other area kind of cools down, right? Like, I don't think they're all hot at once necessarily. There's
Yeah,
movement
that's
and
fair.
motion to it, but they feed into one another. Yeah, I think that the biggest thing I've always said, even as like a media brand and business, like I wish I did more tech, because again, it's like the typical thing of tech and scale. When you're building content, like I think the issue is that the way to scale content is, again, it's not difficult, I guess, for some people. It requires other people. So um so to have a platform that is so energized and vibrant that other people want to just play in there is an amazing thing. It's also a rare thing. Like, you know, many times I have a platform where they're like, we're providing a better rev share, you get more ownership, you own the audience. And I'm like, but no one is there. So like, in order to get creators on board, either there needs to be money there up front, even if there's no one there, or a ton of people there that they can't help but need to be there because business models are moving there and community is there. So they want to take from that community, right? So like, if you just have a model and an idea of how creators can make more money, we would all have that. We would all build a business around that. It requires that magic intersection of community and revenue models. And a lot of times, if you have the community and the build and the scale, according to Instagram, which I find hard to believe, and like Adam Mosseri, who's like the head there, he was like, we tried the monetization thing. It just doesn't work for the model, like of us, what we need to do to make money, and then you. And I'm like, no, that's an excuse. But we have these clashes of what scale and tech means in a company in order to support an ecosystem that is building on it. And again, we need to be able to find some sort of solution. Like, if we can figure out how to use AI for, God knows what at this point, like, I don't get how we can't use AI and this tech to figure out how to help both sides make money. I don't get why it's one or the other. Like, that should have never been in the equation. But the problem is, the thing is, it always became like, well, people just want to share and connect with each other. And I think that the technologists that built it, at least, like, they're not creatives. They don't get what goes into it. And they didn't see it as maybe something that people would maybe build their careers on. If you're just talking about like ways I want to just connect and do that, like, yeah, I want to share something. I want to share a viral moment. It's happenstance. But when you're starting to talk about me being more intentional and creating space in my schedule and calendar and relying on your platform for my living, then things change. And that's a beautiful thing, because that means the community is kind of like directing you as to where the tech should go and what that means. I mean, everything, I think founder wants that, because you have to do less work. It's like you just rely on the community to figure out. But I think as then founders or as executive teams, your job then, if the community is telling you what they want and where they want to go and they're building that, is to say, okay, well, how do we build a sustainable ecosystem for that versus one that takes? And I do think we're in a bit of a toxic relationship right now that won't end.
Well, and all the platforms need the users and the creatives. That's how they thrive, is us creating content that they're repackaging. Out of the platforms out there, and Pinterest is another one that I'll throw into the equation. It's kind of like a quiet, sleepy one.
And LinkedIn,
which one in
by
your
the way,
mind does
LinkedIn now too. Those are the ones that people, the next that people are paying attention to, right? Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'm definitely spending probably the most time on LinkedIn these days. But out of all the platforms, which one in your mind is doing the best job of actually sharing the revenue and paying the creators?
The only platform that consistently does that, that's not including a bonus structure. Bonus structures are great, but it's not a model. It means like they're doing bonuses for the first 6 months while they're trying to plug out this tool, the tool that they're building, or what they want you to use. So for me, that's cute. It's not, it's like a consulting deal while you're working full time somewhere, it's going to end at a certain point, but you're still working full time. So I would like a bonus structure plus consistent, revenue. And then if you double down on that, you get bonuses. So really YouTube is still the only place. And then, Threads and Instagram, people are getting bonuses here and there, but it's few and far between. And then TikTok, there's some monetization there, but again, barely. So don't let people get you to think that TikTok's like this crazy monetization place.
Well, is TikTok even going to be here, after January?
Right. And so really where, at least for me, but I know for other people, where most of the money comes from is brand deals and integrations. And so, like in the end, in order to get $5,000 off a video on any of these platforms, how many views do you need to get? But you get $5,000 and that pays for your time to create the video, plus, basically them renting your platform to advertise on. And if brands are smart, I wish, more brands should do this. They could use your video as an ad asset to then continue promoting their products. And some people do that. And I think that's the smart thing. Cause like, if you were going to hire, as your social media agency or creative agency or any sort of production house to produce a video, guess what? It probably would be $15,000 just to produce it, minimum. Plus, then you have no platform you're going to put it on except yours. So you're getting both with creators, and even that is then you're underpaying. But I get it because the economy is changing. That model isn't working as much, but still, I think with that in mind, like creators most of the times are being underpaid. So a lot of times we'll be like, well, for this following, we don't pay this. And you're like, you're not just paying for the following. You're paying for my time to create, like to ideate, to shoot a video, to edit a video. There's other people I hire for this, to go back and forth, maybe like 2 editing rounds with you. Then you're also paying for, yes, if this platform, these followers are worth this, then okay, I'll give that to you. Pay me $3,000 or $5,000, and then pay me another $3,000, $5,000 for my time. But I'm integrating my time into that. So if anything, you're getting a good deal. Anyway,
a really good deal.
I do love how that is possible. Listen, I used to work like full time at a radio show, and I literally got paid in a month what I get paid for one video. So that's awesome. But I don't have a 401k and I have to pay for my own health insurance. And at least I know that money is coming in every month. There could be like 1 month where I get like 4 brand deals and then like 3 months where I get nothing. So on a personal level, my personal brand. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a roller coaster. Well, and a thing that's come up on the show just recently, the one actually coming out as we're recording with Dr. Walter D. Grayson, and actually Kayla Love, who's a hip hop artist and rapper. One of the things that came up in conversations with them is they're really excited about new opportunities for economic freedom to leverage all these new tools too. And Walter didn't say this, but Kayla is really about automation and multiple revenue streams too. And she dabbled with NFTs, but I know you were early on the NFT blockchain too. And you didn't mention any of that as the current state in the creator economy. Do you see that as still viable or still coming?
I do think in the heat of the moment, like in the height of it, it was because a lot of people were there who were excited to engage. I do think it's harder now. And I do think that it does work for some people. Like I know a lot of artists who have their own communities. And the issue with NFTs and Web3 is it's not just about having your community from everything else. It's like, it's a very specific community that engages in that way sometimes. Even for someone like, and like Liam Payne, unfortunately, who I'm mentioning, who's no longer with us, his manager, who I know well, was doing NFTs for him. And even that, like with a concert of how many people, I think they had a pretty good conversion rate, but like they didn't say it was an NFT, but it was like, oh, get our fan collectible. And maybe they had, I should go in the email. I have the email, but like the engagement was a lot for that. But that was a celebrity like that, right? Where, of course, people want to collect things. So I think that it can be hard unless you get deep in the community, and then that's even more work, right? And so I think that there's a lot of good side opportunities, but then to just rely on that and Web3 for, again, the be all end all of your brand right now and your revenue stream is probably not the way to go. Well, I do think, yeah, again, as a visual artist, even as a filmmaker, there's like a lot of grants within companies like no one is going after because they don't know about it. So I look at those more of those spaces as, you know, doors to go through that not a lot of people are seeing that can support you either with a project you're having a hard time getting support within the traditional field, and like how do you experiment with that community and those maybe revenue paths for you, and money. Like there is money there to support creatives. For me, I definitely benefited from that. Like I was a consultant advisor. I collected NFTs from female founded companies and brands that I really liked and that I wanted to engage with. And I still love the community and I do believe in blockchain tech, but I had to step back because I felt like I became known as this like NFT girl in LA and in Hollywood. And in Hollywood right now, there aren't a lot of opportunities in Web3 and blockchain. And so I saw the writing on the wall and I'm like, well, I've had a whole career before this and I know a lot more than just the Web3 and blockchain tech. And I feel like I'm pigeonholing myself. And so I really had to, for me, strategically expand out of that into more of like, I'm about emerging tech and the creator economy. And of course, NFTs and Web3 is part of that. And I'm happy to talk about that, but it's not the entirety of my career and my brand and my work right now.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I wanted to mention, and I just tried to look it up really quickly, as far as what you mentioned about paying for your own health insurance, which, you know, I'm in that category too. Of, I guess other things in the ecosystem is new opportunities for gig work to get health insurance and stuff. And there's like the Freelancers Union, which is out of Brooklyn. And I'm not sure if their insurance that they offer is just New York State or national, but I think more services like that will start popping up too.
Yeah.
Because you have an entire, not even outside the gig economy, like your Uber drivers and stuff, a ton of gig work right now outside of the traditional, regular employment type of thing.
Yeah. And I'm happy you mentioned that, by the way. That's something I'm thinking a lot of when it comes to the creator economy. And I again, SAG as a union is trying to get creators in more so that we get protections. There's the Creators Guild of America, CGA. Don't necessarily think those are home runs as a solution right now. Like, LA folks and New York folks maybe know SAG. Like, there's a lot of other creators out there. Are they going to be joining SAG? I'm not sure. I don't know if it's relevant for them or if it would, if they're going to be able to get even enough credits where it matters. So, I'm definitely, that's something I'm thinking about. That's all I'll say is part of protecting creators and part of creating a sustainable ecosystem is making sure that we can, again, there's some guidelines to how we get to work together and protect one another. And how do we get our basics taken care of or at a discount since there's a lot of us. So how do we get access to better priced mental health care as well as regular health care? Yeah.
Well, that's a good tee up to talk about something else that you think a lot about and care a lot about, and that's creators and mental health. So I'd love for you to kind of share your current project and how that came about and why it's so important to you right in this moment in time specifically.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, I had my own ups and downs being in the digital media space for a while and just my own experience in it and just story, my unique story in life. And that led me on my own personal growth and mental health journey a few years ago, pre-COVID. And then I found myself trying to figure out how I bring it into the work I do. And at the time, the work, of course, was very pop culture tech. And I was like, oh, this is going to be awkward, off-putting, cringy to like do this on my personal brand. And I took the leap and I decided just to share my truth, which is like very true. The truth will set you free. And I started feeling more myself. There was still some little judgments and insecurities that come up, but overall, it really led me on more of a purposeful path and journey that has influenced the work I'm doing. And so I'm really grateful for that. And I started a wellness organization with a friend of mine who was really part of that, Jordana Ream, because we had gone on this really life-changing trip to Everest Base Camp in 2019. And from there, that's how I started co-creating that content. And so in 2020, we launched Peace Inside Live, and we were doing virtual classes, donation-based during that crisis moment. And then we moved into corporate wellness because I had a lot of brand relationships from What's Trending, et cetera. And so approaching those brands to say, hey, I know you know me from What's Trending and like sponsor integrations, but who do you have your organization that does this? And they were like, wow, that's really cool what you're doing, Shira. And so we had some success in that, and even bringing it to the Web3 world, which is, of course, like definitely needs mindfulness and mental health because they're constantly connected and 24/7. And it's an industry that exists on FOMO. And actually, we created a journal called the JOMO Journal, inspired by that, which you could buy on Amazon or our website right now. Great gift for yourself or someone else this holiday season. And through that whole journey and getting hired, and then just kind of figuring out the next opportunity, I guess more recently this past year, both of my worlds finally came together, the creator world and the mental health world. And we did a proof of concept event in LA in June called Creators for Mental Health, had some sponsorships. And then we did in October, we did one with Shopify. And really, this is my big focus going into 2025 is bringing mental wellness tools to the creator economy, and the creators, our communities, and even the companies around it. And how do we have these events? How do we integrate it into accelerators, into companies, into platforms? I mean, there's so much of that with the next generation. I think there's a stat like 60% of them want to be influencers and creators. How do we make sure the space is a safe one that can support them as much as possible? We can't obviously control people's lives. There's lessons they will learn as they grow, including ourselves. There's lessons we will continue to learn despite being told otherwise, and that there's another option. However, the more we can create those guardrails and support system, I think the better. And so I'm super excited about that. And, it makes everything I've been through and some of the pain and hardships feel, at least it was there for a reason to then bring me here. So yeah, I'm really excited about next year. I'm already having so many conversations with brands about some big things, as well as a really cool study that I'm working on around creators and mental health. So more to come.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I guess for the creators listening, what are some resources or top 3 things that you like part of your messaging, or for them to keep in mind as to I guess just manage their well-being as a creator?
Yeah, follow me, Shira Lazar. I'll be your bestie mentor. But no, I think it's about figuring out where you're at on your mental health journey, right? We're all in different places. And then figuring out the tools that you need to thrive. And that might mean different things for each of us. Like, we each have different positive coping strategies and mechanisms. So for me, my, sleep is really important, having enough sleep and building my schedule around that. And, making sure I'm in a place where I'm drinking enough water and eating the right things and going outside because you're so connected, creating boundaries around phone use, right? Because we not just live our lives on these phones, but for a lot of us who work on these devices, it's intertwined. And so definitely creating boundaries around that. And I would say, finally, a support system so that, when you are having a hard time, you have someone to talk to. And I would say on the personal but professional side too, like this work in this business, not a lot of people understand. So you might feel like you're the only one going through this. Like, I can't really talk to my friends or my parents about it or my partner. And so having people, that are your peer. And then also this is where, finding a manager or someone that's a professional in the space to like say, I'm feeling this, or like, I'm unsure about where my brand's going. I'm feeling like plateaued in my growth. You can talk to someone about it because you will realize that, one, it's totally normal and that you're not alone. A lot of people are going through the same thing. And then you could share tools and advice and all that. And that will make you feel less alone, which is, I think, just really important. And then again, with all of that, double tapping on the not doing it alone. Knowing the moment you're feeling alienated in your process and that you just are overwhelmed, there's only so much you can handle. Making sure you're getting that support. I have a social media producer and editor. Like, I hated doing that. It gave me anxiety. It gave me anxiety to upload. And so I get support with that. And then a mental health professional as well. Always helps if that's your thing, but you need to figure out what your thing is. It could be that group therapy. It could be online anonymous doing that. But yeah.
One thing that you just mentioned about a support network, and I know you recently did some content around the teenager who had an AI girlfriend that ended up committing suicide. And I wasn't intending to bring this up on the show, but I think it's really important to talk about because we do have a loneliness epidemic in this country. And being a creator, and it's only going to continue to grow, the whole how many creators can be lonely. And, these AI things can help. But at the end of the day, it's human to human to human to human connection. That's really, really important. And that the more I think about that story, the more it just makes my blood boil. Because these products are just being released so recklessly. I don't know if do you listen to Hard Fork, the New York Times podcast with Casey Newton and Kevin Roos?
No.
It's really good. And I think it was last week's episode that covered this. But I think it was Kevin who also did a story for the New York Times on it, said that one of the original founders said like, oh, we're not in the medical field. We can make mistakes when it comes to like solving loneliness through friends. Like, that's the mentality of like, oh, it's just loneliness, like, and friendship. Like, it's not medical. So we don't need as many guardrails and we can make mistakes. And then the story happened. And then it's like, so like mental health is a health issue, first of all. And then who's funding these people who aren't putting proper guardrails or at all? Like, and I forget, this is character AI. They've raised like, I don't know, like 100, I know it's over 150 million in one of their rounds. Like, and they're getting funded without proper
when
guardrails.
People look at these things, they're not looking at it from a nuanced perspective, right? That humans are using this, right? And so as humans, we are layered and nuanced. We have our own things like that we bring to the table when using this, which makes the product a completely different thing. And we need to force founders and developers and builders to be thinking holistically about this, not just about the tech experience, the product experience, but the human experience. And I do believe they can do this if these people are that smart. I think, unfortunately, they have not been pushed and challenged and called forth to do that in the past. And they've relied on the excuse of it's not our responsibility. This is not what the tech is made for. That is an irresponsible response. And they know better. They're doing it to protect themselves. And it's like, read the room. It's so tone deaf. And I expect more. And I could see how, the deck of this company where it's like, ooh, use AI and you can build characters and it's super creative and people build worlds and talk to each other and this, that, not thinking, okay, well, what's the worst case scenario? Like, we are in a time where we need to be thinking about the worst case scenario and preparing for that. Of course, unfortunately, there's going to be things that happen that we are not going to see. We have our own blinders, biases, all this limitations. But the minute it does happen, we are in a place to take accountability and make a change. And that's what's not happening in tech, including with, unfortunately, these men who run these companies. I'm not going to say women don't take accountability, but, I do think it's like this whole thing that they have never been in a place like this to be called out in this way. And like, they're so just stuck in the privilege they've had to build these things and raise this money that I think they refuse to see the importance of doing this right now. And that will be to their fault and their own self-destruction. And I don't think there's any excuse to respond to a situation like this and to use a lawyer, obviously, response. There's a way to legally protect yourself while also being human.
I am going to play a clip from Cindy Gallop, who's been on the show.
Cindy Gallop.
This clip speaks directly to what you're saying, that it's women and underrepresented voices that get the brunt of the worst of the internet, and we build with safety in mind first and not as an afterthought. So we'll play that clip.
Young white male founders of the giant tech platforms that dominate all our lives today, including OpenAI, they are not the primary targets, online or offline, of harassment, abuse, sexual assault, racism, violence, rape, revenge porn. Therefore, they did not and they do not proactively design for the prevention of any of those things on any of their platforms. And we see the results of that around us every single day, as we just have done with the Taylor Swift deepfakes. Those of us who are most at risk every single day, women, Black people, people of color, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, we design safe spaces and safe experiences, but we don't get funded. Last year, only 1.7% of all venture capital went to female founders. White male VCs are funding white male founders. And that is the problem right there.
In addition to what you said too, like in terms of like putting pressure on all the companies, I am pro balanced regulation, just for the record, since we're recording this. And also like the VCs, like they need to be put pressure on too, because they're funding and enabling these companies. Like as a VC, before you invest, you should check out like, is it responsible AI? What are the guardrails? And if it deals with loneliness, are there like psychologists or experts or whatever needed to make sure that the product is actually safe for the users?
See, this is where, like, if AI is used as an assistant, it's dealing with humans. So all these companies probably should have mental health professionals working with them and consulting with them, period. It should just be part of your leadership team, part of the development team, just like you have, the AI builders, developers, the AI ethics. Like this should be part of these teams. Even if you don't have a mental health tool or platform, it ultimately impacts people's behavior and mental health. It's like, this isn't rocket science.
Yeah, if yes, everything impacts. Yeah.
Like, what are you like? That's cray-cray. Like, we are living in like the upside down here, and we're already seeing it. So, hello, like Einstein said, doing the same thing, expecting different results will make you crazy. We're seeing in a very short amount of time, thankfully, unfortunately, the results. So, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to continue just like, oh well, we're already building, we're already doing this, and like, we didn't expect this. Okay, well, it happened. Now what do? It shifts how you build. You need to respond to the moments. Like, what the fuck is going on?
We're both like so riled up because the other thing too that I was going to add on top of that is like, this shouldn't be a surprise. This isn't like, we've had over a decade of social media and know that we have teen depression and suicide from social media. So what are you thinking that something even more intimate as a friend isn't problematic? Like you're talking about, building on all this data and stuff. Why don't we look at the past decade of data that's going to tell you that you need to take this serious?
Yeah.
And I saw an ad by Meta last night too. I think I put this on my Instagram stories where it was for Ray-Bans, and the ad copy said something of like, let Ray-Ban tell AI tell you what's most important. I'm like, okay, so this is the company that's algorithms optimized for sensationalism is now going to be in our ears telling us what's most important. Oh yeah, that doesn't sound like a disaster waiting to happen.
Like I like the team at meaning, I'm not talking about like, I work with our creator team. Everyone's very nice. That said, it has obviously.
Oh, I have a lot of friends on Facebook too and Meta.
Let's talk about this. Even that tagline, like who in marketing, like a focus group, be like, we need to remind people that, this is the thing. I think we are losing our sense that we know who we are and what we know is important, right? Like we have sovereignty over that. And our biggest gift as humans is our sense of self. And only each of us know what we can enjoy, what brings us purpose, all that. These things, these tools can help, but we have actually that inner wisdom, and we are being taught that we need external things to help us get there. And this is the main issue. If, a responsible thing would be let the Ray-Ban glasses, support you in seeing all the beauty around you in your life, or like in capturing that, like seeing what's important. Really? It's like, well, then what happens when my Ray-Ban glasses go out of battery or I lose them? Can I no longer see what's important in my life? I don't have that capacity. It's like taking away our personal power. So I'm more worried about that than regulations. Like, I think we're using regulations as an excuse to not put guardrails and not hold companies accountable to doing the right thing and looking at their tech and builds in a nuanced way. Like, let's not override that. It's like a fallacy, right? When you're saying like, oh, it's one or the other, right? So I just want to preface that, but yeah. And I know that you probably think the same thing, but it's not just you. It's so many other people that are just like, wait, the regulation, I'm so scared. And it's like, there's many other things to be more scared about at this point that we're seeing the results of than something that we haven't even done, that anything at this point could help. Let's just start testing things out instead of doing the same thing and expecting different results.
Yeah, and I'm with you. And I don't think it's just regulation that's needed, but like self-regulation doesn't work. And we absolutely know that. And public pressure and personal agency. The one thing, I guess, it's a lot to put it on one person. And this is from the first Tristan Harris TED Talk that went viral of like, it's all on you to manage the onslaught of all this noise. Like it needs to be a multifaceted effort. And I do love that you said like personal power, because I did a post on LinkedIn the other day about this article too. And the point was we can't normalize this and accept it as like collateral damage for tech's progress, because that excuse gets used all the time. And we're already desensitized to like school shootings. We can't just become desensitized to this. So I think we all need to get outraged. And then one of the comments on that post was like, well, if nothing's done, this is going to be what's happened. I was like, nothing isn't inevitable, but people already like on a post that's like, we can't accept this, accepting it. And I was just like, this is... I worry sometimes.
No, I think that we're creating new models as we go. But yeah, it is worrisome that people don't see this. I don't think pointing fingers at just one thing is a solution. I think that it is a blend of what you just said. It's a holistic perspective of tech, working with government, working with the human, the consumer, the creator, and this is the new Illuminati. No, okay. It's a trifecta. It's a trifecta approach, right? And we each need one another as we move and grow and build. I think that, again, the pointing the finger is just creates a lack of solution and an easy way to take accountability off of that person, that company. And so I think the more we look at that, the more we could say, okay, the solution needs to integrate all three.
Yeah. Well, couldn't agree more. I know we're getting short in time, and we got all riled up for the topic.
These podcasts can be too boring. We need to get riled up.
Well, I guess before I ask the last question, it seems like some of the takeaways of because one thing when Shira and I were prepping, it was like, it's so easy to go to the doom and gloom with, AI in the future, which we just did. But what are the positive stories and where are we going? So kind of from today's conversation, it's mental health needs to be addressed from all angles. Pay creators, that model needs to happen. What are some of your other wish list items so that we can thrive as the creator economy grows?
Yeah, for me, I would love to wake up and just someone to tell me, a baseline of here's what you're you need to know based on your interests and how you behave and all that. Maybe what you want to post on each of these platforms that will allow for, more engagement, more growth. That I think is, part of it, and Justine Bateman would think otherwise because, you want to continue your creative muscle, but sometimes it's more of a creative assistant. And you would, by the way, hire someone for this, but a lot of people don't have the money to hire someone for their social media producer assistant. So what if I had that, as an AI that was okay, here's what I want you to shoot today. Here's what I want you to do. Of course I have input in that and I can tweak it, but it becomes it comes there as a baseline for me to work from versus waking up and being okay, another day I get to work alone and self-motivate. And look at every platform and get overwhelmed before I can even post. So I that for me would be great. It's that kind of creator assistant in a pocket. And I know different companies are trying this, but still it's a lot. I don't think we're there. And so that's ultimately what I would like, because then I can, I guess, keep up with things at my own pace and get that support I need and not feel like it's just my brain working and there's other inputs and feedback that I trust. And yeah, I get to create better, and I won't even want to say more because I think we are getting into more of a quality content output than more. There will be so many AI and bots that will put out more. And so you don't want to be like a McDonald's, you want to be more of a mom and pop, maybe someone knows you, they know what to expect, or you're premium, or again, you're more niche, right? The humans are going to end up, there will be humans that become mass producers, but I do think what will separate us from the AI and the machine accounts will be that personalization. And maybe you're not outputting that much content, but what you put out is special and is meaningful and it's valuable. So these are different things I'm thinking about. And ultimately that allows me, if you take that time off of my schedule where it's being used more efficiently, in the optimistic sense, it's not I could then do more. I could do more things that matter. So maybe I could be more of service and volunteer. I could be with my family. I could go outside and then, do all those things that we know support ourselves as humans, and then bring back that joy into the work I do because it's more balanced. And I'm doing more for myself. And then that influences maybe me to shift into something I wasn't going to shift into because I had more space on the other side to be Shira, not just be output Shira.
And there's an interview. Did you ever come across Miss Excel by any chance? I'll include the link in the dedicated accompanying blog post and send it to you. She has a really interesting approach of, she gets into flow state and kind of uses manifesting tools, and she's figured out the model. And then she gets these viral ideas, but when she's on camera, because she's got this whole calmness, like she sees like her energy really coming through the screen and stuff. So everything that you just said about freeing up your time, like it actually enables you to show up digitally even better, because that energy is flowing through you, you know. So it benefits everyone.
No, totally. It's like imagine
the creator and the viewers.
The work we're consuming. If we're all like, if the world is energy, right, and what we're consuming is energy, you know, then if we're consuming something AI, is that energy? Like, what are we actually consuming? Is it junk food, right? Or is it just flat, right? I think that's really interesting. And so if you think about the people, and this is why you unfollow people that give you bad vibes or that are bringing you down, because that's true. It's like, that is energy. You don't need to be around someone in person at an event, dinner, this or that, to get them to suck your energy, right? And so like, also be responsible for the energy you put out there, not just IRL, but online, which means taking care of yourself, because people are consuming that. And again, someone's more likely, even if you don't go viral, but like the people that do consume that content will feel better if you feel better. That said, I always tell creators, because like the biggest thing we deal with is like, again, being in the place of like, well, I wasn't in the mood to create, and then just like create. Doesn't mean you have to be in the best mood, the best vibes, the best state. Sometimes, like, as we know, Taylor Swift creates amazing work when she's sad and angry. But again, it goes back to making sure you're working on yourself so that what you're putting out there, you're proud of. Because when you're proud of it and it's aligned and authentic, then it makes more sense for what you're trying to build. So yeah, it's all in many ways connected. I was going to say one more thing, and I think that as folks that are privileged and we are able, that we forget how much these tools help those who really need them, those in the disability community, those who might not have, certain access that we have. And so as ableist folks having these conversations about, oh, how horrible all this stuff is, there's a huge group of people that if they didn't have these tools, they could not live. And so we also have to remember that as we're building for everyone and also representing these tools for everyone. I'll just remind people about that. I interviewed Molly Burke, who's a blind creator, and she's like, I love AI. I've been using AI forever. Like, of course, there's things to look out for, but like for someone like her, like this is how she functions and thrives daily. And yet we're fighting and arguing about these things that like, or someone that might have some sort of neurodegenerative disease who now can put a chip in their brain, or, you know what I mean? Like use AI to do something. And yet we're saying like, I don't want to be man versus machine. And I'm like, totally valid. But yet some of these people are now able to live their lives. So like, yeah, let's look at the holistic, if we're going to look at a theme, like a holistic, nuanced perspective of all of this.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And I think I did a conversation like this with Eric Solomon offline, but might bring it into a series for the show of like counterpoint, and think about this of like, I think I agree with you, and I'm pro inclusiveness of all abilities and, thoughts and all this, thought diversity, neurodiversity, but specifically to your point, ability, that it's really easy to start with, and this is the nuance piece of using disability, of like how this is going to help the world and then to commercialize it and miss a lot of the thoughtfulness when it enters mass market, because it wins the hearts over early on of helping the disabled, and then like, where's the intentionality when it's rolled out to everyone too? Like, I think it's yes, and we just have to be really careful that we're still every part of the process, like critical on it too.
But skepticism should happen from all of us, even those who benefit from it. Right?
Yeah.
So that is hugely important. All this, like when you look at an optimistic perspective of tech, it is not rainbows and unicorns and everything is great and perfect and we're all going to be, no, that is not it. It means that you're, again, seeing it in a holistic way, in a nuanced way. I'll continue saying those two words, and then bringing forth both conversations, not even an argument, but both realities so that you can find solutions. Got to be reasonable, right?
Yes, and hire diverse people. That will enable your products to be more diverse out the gate. Okay, I know we're short on time. One last question that I ask all of my guests. If you want our viewers and audience to remember one thing, what's that one thing that you'd like them to walk away with today?
It starts with you and it ends on you, so work on you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for all of your time. We covered so much today. I so appreciate it. And happy Halloween and have a wonderful weekend.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for spending some time with us today. We're just getting started and would love your support. Subscribe to Creativity Squared on your preferred podcast platform and leave a review. It really helps. And I'd love to hear your feedback. What topics are you thinking about and want to dive into more? I invite you to visit creativitysquared.com to let me know. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for our free weekly newsletter so you can easily stay on top of all the latest news at the intersection of AI and creativity. Because it's so important to support artists, 10% of all revenue Creativity Squared generates will go to ArtsWave, a nationally recognized nonprofit that supports over 100 arts organizations. Become a premium newsletter subscriber or leave a tip on the website to support this project and ArtsWave. And premium newsletter subscribers will receive NFTs of episode cover art and more extras to say thank you for helping bring my dream to life. And a big, big thank you to everyone who's offered their time, energy, and encouragement and support so far. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. This show is produced and made possible by the team at Play Audio Agency. Until next week, keep creating.